Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. It's March 27th, 2026. 1:16 on the clock. I hope that you are doing amazing and that you're having a most pleasant conclusion to your week and an exciting start of the weekend. Indeed. Just gonna get a quick message and see what is what today. Of course, you know I'm laughing because quick is always my intention, but what I ultimately ends up being, it's not always in my control. All right, so let's get to it. Two of Cups. Okay. I'm gonna look at this, but I won't take it. Some type of protection. I just heard a protection plan. Because like Two of Cups can be contractual or can be some type of agreement. So maybe some type of protection plan, or there is a connection or some type of relationship that either is worth protecting, or that someone is protecting, or that is protective. Interesting. Let's see. Oh, no wonder. It's bringing a lot of favors and fortune. So it's something that may be one and the same. There's something that comes highly protected. 118 lights up on the clock, which is also a 10 reduced. So it's something that could be protected from a high level, or it's like some type of contract or agreement that is so faded that it comes equipped with certain divine protections already in place, so that no matter, as with that Seven of Wands, what comes up against it, it's like fail proof, like it's set in stone, it's written in stone. It's only a matter of timing for it to manifest, but not necessarily circumstance. Like one lifetime or another, this is happening, and something tells me it's probably this one. If we're talking about it, but it might be something that was in the making for a very long time, maybe even 4 lifetimes, or on different realms and dimensions and realms of reality and so on and so forth, that have been fighting to bring, like the elements have been fighting to clear way for this to happen without resistance, or just in the perfect alignment, where it can be properly preserved, perhaps for the long run. Like something about timing is really significant here, and a lot was pitted against it at every turn. But like I said, it would be a matter of like, all right, if it didn't happen last lifetime because certain things, weren't in alignment, it was always going to, this wheel was always going to spin back around. It was always going to spin the block at some point in time, because it's just written to do so. This has to be carried out in some divine order. It's like two people being destined to meet, and the universe orchestrating that, maybe in even the most serendipitous ways, where the rest of the universe is fighting tooth and nail to keep it from happening, or to detour one or the other, or shift the elements so that it it seems to be an inopportune time, it's like the overall force is like, no, I said now. And so that's where you get those serendipitous, seemingly serendipitous occurrences where you bump into somebody that you would never expect to meet in a certain, or either meet in a certain place or encounter, or reunite with even in a certain place. But like maybe you weren't even supposed to go that way or go to this place, but something suddenly compels you to do so. And there you go, bumping into this person, that you might not have crossed paths with otherwise. Well, that's the universe orchestrating the circumstances perfectly to align for this destined meeting. A destined meeting, that's what it is. Destiny, a meeting with destiny. And this might not be a person. It could just be an opportunity that was heavily resisted, that's finally being orchestrated in the perfect fashion for you to meet it along your path, or it to meet you, or both. It's definitely, I would say, something that's fulfilling with the Two of Cups, though. It's like it's coming at a moment or in a matter that feels perfect, like it feels right. There's like a mutual where we have the same feelings, like we're on the same page, like a mutual, what's that word, like mutual, the feelings are mutual, between these two energies, whether it's a noun, a person, place, a thing. You know what I'm trying to say. Whatever it is, it's mutual. It's ready for you. You're ready for it. You're available for it. It's available for you. Wow, look at this with the, yeah. I'm gonna get these out first, and then because you're, as it is when you think about like the perfect position or composure to be in to make a intimate connection, is usually best when you're in your own independence, or even your sovereignty, whether it's spiritually, mentally, physically, whatever the case may be, where you feel quite stable and secure in your own being, with what you've accomplished, with what you're able to manage and maintain, with how you feel about yourself, your self-esteem, what you're capable of, what you're a yes to, what you're a no to, your standards, your moral ethics, your moral and ethical standards, your desires, your intentions, like everything in the Nine of Pentacles is very solid. It's very solid. It's open posture though, even as she's standing. So it's like there's always room for more in the right frequency. Again, that's on the same page, Two of Cups, but perfectly content in solitude as well. On their own is that energy. So if we're talking about a relationship, again, it's like I don't need nobody else, but the company would be nice, the support would be nice, the shared connection would be amazing, but it would have to match that energy, like Nine of Cups type of match. Let's see, what else we got? Sorry, my neighbors are having a good old time apparently outside. Well, this is the Eight of Cups, so this could even be somebody on their way to the Nine of Cups, and here it is. That could be the synergy of serendipity right there, where someone is walking away from something that's unsatisfying or unfulfilling, going toward, it with faith, that thing that they may not even be able to recognize quite, or know for sure what they're after. except they're knowing that what's to be left behind or released is not it. So this actually makes a lot of sense, given I just said the Nine of Cups. This is what comes before that someone might be having their own uh, come to Jesus moment. I don't know, but somebody might be having their own transition of sorts, where for one side, like this is spotlighting the feminine energy in this card. For one side, it was a matter of independence and releasing codependency, and all the other things that come with the Eight of Pentacles card. Maybe for the masculine side, it was a matter of what we can't see, here, given we can't see the masculine energy. It was someone that was really being guided to release what they may have been settling for. And that leads them on the path. And here they go, getting away from the things that may have been hindering their best fortune and favor with this Wheel of Fortune. Because you can't have that level of fortune in a place where you are dissatisfied, willingly submitting yourself to dissatisfaction. There's nothing that can really pierce through that auric field, because there's no room for it to fit. Like this big ass gift or opportunity or circumstance here can't fit into old dimensions. Oh, literally dimensions. I really meant like containment, but that's interesting. Because we all know the Wheel of Fortune is like usually some type of multi-dimensional energy. So this really just could be about, the physicality, the actuality of timeline jumping, where you no longer exist in a frequency that used to be comfortable or used to be familiar to you. For the feminine, it could have been codependency. For the masculine, it could have been settlement, or resolving to have just enough, or to be or even settlement with dissatisfaction. I can imagine well, humans in general are good for that, where you feel like, well, I can't do any better than this, or I should just learn to be happy with this. There's some timeline that was jumped here that has changed the trajectory. Changed not the trajectory, because it was always on track. As I said, it was happening regardless, but something's happened particularly at this time to co-create this resonance of reality, where the divine could actually work with the submission and the what's the right word, like the intentions, I suppose, of the individual forces that are being merged or connected. So maybe in lifetimes past, these timelines were confining, where, like I said, somebody wasn't willing to aspire to more, somebody wasn't willing to expand their capacity to create on either side. Their will and their determination to cultivate a sacred solitude, or independence in a world that, as in the Seven of Wands, resists that at every turn. But here, now, perhaps, the universe has something it can work with. It's like it would have kept recycling every lifetime or every timeline until it finally found a match. And it seems like both of those separate entities, whatever we're talking about here, are now on one accord and in the perfect timing and moment and essence that they need to be. Maybe at once, sometimes it was one that was ready, but then the other wasn't, and then vice versa, or one that was willing and then the other wasn't, or the circumstances of resistance were more impactful and impressionable in different cycles because there was an allowance for that. You know, maybe there wasn't the assistance and the support to transcend as I won't even say effortlessly, really tirelessly, as it's been allowed to do so now. And even still, like, even with all of the elements in place, like I'm saying, it's always a co-creativity with the divine because all systems could be a go and the prophecy has already been proclaimed. But like I said, 131 on the clock, if one is not at the rendezvous point of initiation, then the other is kind of like left at the altar, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like it needed to be all things online, all systems a go. Let me get one more here. Wow, look at this celebration. And that could even be, so this could definitely be something of the past that's getting another opportunity, a relationship of the past, or again, past life, or something that's ancient, you know, that was written, or that had a go round in previous cycles. And because this could be like reconciliation card or even a reunion type of energy here with the three of cups. But it's definitely something celebratory, something to be happy about, which I said, like something is a joyous occasion here. And I would even say, because sometimes I see the Three of Cups as like angels and ancestors celebrating even beyond the physical, you know. Well, maybe in the physical, actually, now that we're talking about it. But it's something about there being really like an elation energy for the fact that the time has come. Oh, the time has come. I hope I remember that. That might be the thumbnail title. The time has come. Interesting. All right, let's move on, I think. Yeah. Three of Pentacles. I was just scratching my head, and that's the energy I get in this card, that there's like an adverse energy here in this case. I mean, it could be a cooperation or corroboration of this Three of Cups, but oftentimes I see, especially coming after the Three of Cups, I see the Three of Pentacles as like a collusion, even sometimes corruption, but we'll see what else comes out. Energy, where there's like some you know, consorting in dark corridors somewhere, trying to figure out like what happened, what went wrong, or where the plan went astray, or what can be done to recuperate losses at this point, or to reconfigure the plan or the plot to, you know, create some type of obstinance or resistance here to what's unfolding. And we know the answer to that is nothing. You know, not in this season, nothing that wouldn't be done directly to, you know, self-inflicted ultimately. But let's see. It's too much already in motion. It's too much in motion. Yeah, that was the Hangman. Nothing can be done. There's too much enlightenment. There's too much awareness. Too much has been revealed, exposed, learned. Yeah, nothing but conflict here. See what I'm saying? Like trying to figure out a way to reestablish some type of resistance, but it's all backfiring on those that are corrupted. You know, it's becoming more of a distraction and a resistance unto the plot itself because there's no agreement here. It's very opposite of Two of Cups. Nobody's on the same page. Nobody's seeing eye to eye. Everybody thinks that their plan is the better option, or they know better, or they could do better, or that it's the other person's fault as to why things. It's like the blame game going on here. Too many. What's the saying? Too many chiefs, not enough Indians, which I'm sure is probably derogatory, but that's an old saying. Everybody wants to be the boss. Everybody wants to exert their power, their force over the other, and nothing's getting done, ultimately. Nothing productive. Maybe the only productivity is the entanglement that they're causing for themselves, which might actually be the containment as to why, or at least helping the divine plan along to keep these energies kind of distracted and busy amongst themselves, while something a lot more ooh, look at this, more ooh. Wow. Yeah, while real business is being handled elsewhere. Damn, that's wild. Wow. I mean, this is strong on the healing too. The Temperance and the Sun. The situation is not just being transformed, it's being like mended back to its, well, I actually should say it's not only being mended, it's being transformed, alchemized. Oh, so all of this energy, like I said, is adding value to what is the divine plan here. And what I was also seeing is that there's something that these folks are fighting over. It's like the Three of Pentacles and then the Five of Wands. So it's something that is being coveted as some type of reward or profit or benefit, but it's not enough to go around, which is also the reason for the fight. So it's like a distraction and scarcity here, where folks are fighting over something that does have value, but because there is no synergy here and no diplomacy, it's creating more contention than anything. And it's also, it may not be enough to go around because of who it needs to circulate amongst, or because it's just literally not enough for everybody. You know, it's like it's probably more the greed and lust and gluttonous factor than anything, because it's like all these energies pitched in to hit a lick or do a job, but the reward either is less than what was promised and therefore everybody gets a smaller cut, so there is dissension, or I mean, it could literally, and that could be one aspect, or literally just is not enough for everyone to get something. Like I'm getting like, imagine, this is real specific, but like imagine you do something on credit or on consignment, right? You borrow something, whether it's product, resources, money, whatever it is. You do that because you're believing that the payout you're going to get is going to be able to cover what you borrowed, essentially, and some, to be able to pay your debt, your creditors, your workers, whatever this project is, or whatever we're talking about here. But it's like maybe the job only produced enough to pay the creditor, like pay whomever you owe on consignment. But meanwhile, there's not enough to pay the folks that work the product or work to achieve this profit. So those that were promised a wage or a reward or a payout are like, we did the work. Now where is the payment? Where are the funds? Where's the payout? And there's not enough, because if that consignment isn't paid off, there's going to be a bigger problem on the hands of the orchestrators of this whole ordeal, whatever that means. It could even be, I see it more like almost like, drug related, but it could be mystical too, where you solicit different energies to carry out something like their particular craft. Or it might not be mystical, but everybody has some type of brand of some type of trade or some type of skill here that they have a price associated with, or a rate associated with, and they may have been willing to lend their skill or their craft or whatever, because there's a belief that more was to come, but they're not getting paid ultimately. There literally isn't enough to pay them, because whatever the top of this food chain, see this pyramid here, is requiring to be satisfied, maybe that ain't even being satisfied, but that comes first. So, and the temperance is like really the fact that this is balanced and fair energetically, because whatever this plot and plan was, especially if it's resistance against the grain of divine order, it was destined to fail anyway, just as much as this was destined to succeed. It's like the scales are leveling out beautifully. I cannot believe that was. I can't believe that. I can't believe that. That's crazy. That's wild. Well, do I need to say anymore? After I just literally was talking about it feeling like something illegal or something, definitely something immoral or unethical. And it's like, as above, so below. Spiritual justice is being served, and physical justice is being served. The scales are indeed balancing out. Finally. I'm sorry, I just gotta say it. Finally. Because it's been a long time coming. And it literally, in a broader perspective, could really just be those that continuously, abuse the system, abuse their power, abuse other energies, manipulate other forces for their benefit, with no care of the casualties that incur. It's just however advanced, we can, how as advanced of an outcome as we can forge, is as hard of an ambition we will drive, no matter what laws it breaks, no matter what moral or ethical code it trumps, no matter what universal disruption it may create. That was the insistence on a high level and on a low, maybe even an intimate, personal level to your life. where there were certain things that were on that were fated to happen, maybe even should have already happened by now, except for the constant interferences that were ultimately giving reign to to um to create disturbance, more or less, because everything has been under the allowance of the divine in some way, shape, or form. Even in the essence of time itself. So it's like when the divine says enough is enough, like the time is now, as I said, it really doesn't matter what point of the plan or the agenda an oppositional force may be in. All systems will be shut down at that time, to make way and make room for what is divine. So people will go to jail. People will be stopped in their tracks. Resources will dry up. Energy will be depleted. What used to be a cooperative situation will become chaotic. What used what used to be cloaked or secret, be underground even, will be exposed, and it'll be in the most unsuspecting ways that no one has any point of reference for. Serendipitous, even as the high vibration, no one would have a point of reference for. It wouldn't even be on your radar as to how you could get caught, be indicted, be exposed, be backstabbed or what's the other word, like Ten of Swords, betrayed. How the bottom will fall out. All of your resources and connections would just fall like dominoes, one by one. Like you might have had the law in your pocket at one point in time. You might have had connections in every facet of business in the plan that's orchestrated here. Somebody that does this, somebody that does that, somebody that has access here, somebody that has clearance there, and then all of a sudden none of that. Everybody's being watched. Everybody's being, this could be some type of massive indictment, which we've been seeing a lot, but it could be something like that where it's like an entity or organization of sorts that more or less was slated to be untouchable in some ways, at least maybe thought to be by themselves, is getting touched from the inside out. The demise is coming from the inside. And that could be why there's no resources to pay folks, to pay workers, creditors, connections, this, and that, because the work is kind of at a standstill. Maybe on account of facing some type of legal, spiritually or otherwise, ramifications here. It's like accounts being frozen, or you're being watched, so you can't move like you used to. And what does that do? But it again puts this energy in a holding space so that fate can finally be given the freedom to materialize. What's that? Wow, the Emperor. Damn. We're in Aries season. So that's that. And let's see, what else with this Emperor? Because it's a big boss energy, or a big entity, once again, that would never be expected to be this, like the top, like I was saying before, the top of this food chain being affected all the way, from the bottom up, because the whole operation is falling out and the exposure is 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 following its way all the way to the top, whereas before maybe these foot soldiers or lieutenants or whomever is more in the line of fire would take the fall before the big fish, as they say, would ever get caught. But let's see what's with this emperor. Nobody safe is the point, I'm pretty sure. Because even if the emperor doesn't go to, if it is what I'm saying, the resistance is at this higher level. Even the ones now that are being impacted the most, they might not necessarily be going to jail, or really facing the same legal ramifications that the common folks that they siphon from and use might. But it's like, this is real, this is kind of crass, but it's come to me, so I'm gonna use it. It's kind of like slavery, right? It's kind of like slavery, where when it was abolished, really and truly, all of that labor that masters, industries depended on at the low price of free, the low rate of free, now was dissipated. And of course they found ways around it and virtually enacted a whole nother frequency of slavery with sharecropping, which was a whole nother level. But it still did make an impact on the business, because now you had to offer something in exchange for work, for labor, whereas before you absolutely didn't, and it was legally protected that you didn't. So all of those profits that you were making not doing a damn thing was just rolling right up to your purse, to your accounts, to your legacy, your trust, your to affirm your estate. Now, even though, and what they're going to do, what was they going to do? Get out there and do the work themselves? Maybe some eventually did have to and did, but it wasn't anything that was common. They weren't used to that, which is why other ways, even now, systematically, when you think about society, were enacted to still maintain that frequency of master and subordinate, or servant, dare I say. So we're talking about, here it is, decades, timelines of unlawful, unjustified, unrighteous servitude that's been serving an unfaithful, dare I say, few. And now that system is collapsing in ways that could never have really been foreseen, especially not at the rapid pace that it is. The awakening that's occurring is happening at such an accelerated rate that the powers that be or were can't even keep up with redeveloping a plan to instate a new institution. They can't keep up. Yeah, they can't keep up. And so now all of the work that was, that was secure for a profit, that was sure to secure profits of exuberance, as a matter of fact, not just a livable wage, because if or something that's stable, these energies have ultimately gorged themselves on subservient forces, and inflated their lifestyles in such a way that it's devastating to even consider. It's like CEOs inflating their salaries to such a degree, and especially in comparison to those that are actually contributing to the profit margin, that they can't fathom taking a cut now. Not many of them, not most of them. Even if it would save their business, they'd go down with the ship to hold on to what they're used to bringing in, because their lifestyles now reflect that. But had there been some reason and some responsibility there, some compassion, humanity, even in some cases, maybe they wouldn't have inflated their lifestyle so much in the first place, and it wouldn't be so hard to manage and maintain um, a, of an affluent lifestyle that maybe isn't so despairing from the average worker, but still is ideal, still is fulfilling. God forbid that be enough. So the idea of now living on less than, or having less than what you're used to, just it's an unsettling in so many ways, which is what incites the unreasonability of response to, by any means necessary, try to recreate an ideal situation for them. And whatever this is, again, this could be still legal shit or illegal, macro or micro. Yeah, with the star card here, sorry, my nose is itching here. Yeah, like inflated, and inflated above, in this case I would say, the real stars of the industry, whatever industry we're talking about, even the slaves. You know what I'm saying? Like how much, one second, ouch. That hurt. 1 second. Wow. How much devotion in a crazy world, right? How much devotion would have been maintained, not out of fear, not out of scarcity, if those masters and plantation owners, especially at the point where slavery was abolished, right? If they would have actually said, you know what, we're at least going to pay you fairly, not like they could have. They would have probably had generations of workers devoted to that estate for life, just because there was compassion extended. And I'm sure some did, just as much as we hear about the worst case scenarios there. I'm sure there were some some circumstances that were quite the opposite. Regardless, if that was the sentiment overall, the energy that would have been harvested would have been mutually beneficial in some way, at least for more of a time, and at a higher frequency than it turned out to be. And we can speak of that retrospectively in those times, but also even now, if people were just allowed to live well, to be able to afford their simple lifestyles without the establishment being so freaking greedy and ruthless and inhumane at times, there wouldn't be as much of an uprising as there is now, where folks are like at their wits' end, and even if they're not incited to particularly do anything about it or against it, the morale is so low. That's what I was going to say about the slavery aspect. It's like people may have stayed around because they felt like they had no other choice, But imagine how much harder and diligent and dedicated you might work. You might work like it's your own property if you feel like you're being treated fair, paid well, and allowed, the opportunity to live, and to thrive on your own terms, more or less. But that containment that containment by force is only good but for so long. Eventually it expires. The effect expires with each generation to come, and with the change of the tides and the circumstances, again with the timelines and shifts that occur naturally. Eventually you're just not going to wield that same level of power over anyone anymore, especially not over the best of them. You might have still got the lazy workers to stick around that don't want to go nowhere and look anywhere else. Or you might, in this day and time, get workers that literally don't have a choice but to be here flipping burgers and dropping fries, but they ain't going to do it with a smile. They ain't going to do it with no type of, you know, investment or commitment to excellence. Like, you lost that energy because you didn't want to pay well, you didn't want to be fair, you didn't want to be reasonable. So this is the grip of control that is being rebalanced. Ultimately the power structures are being completely rebalanced, and it's been spoken of a long time and hoped and wished, and I'm sure prayed for some fairness and equilibrium. And it's happening right under our nose, whether you realize it or not. It may appear to be something different on sight by what's being projected, but the underground is it's trickling its way up to the top. The bottom tier is seeing its way all the way up to the pinnacle. Ooh, to the pinnacle. Child. Chariot, yeah, it's happening. And ain't nothing that can be done to stop it. The time has come. Look at this. Would you look at this? It's a redistribution of wealth and wellness. Of abundance that can't even be measured. It's beyond the pentacle at this point. And I know I've been talking a lot about money and money matters, and that all still stands firm. But this is the as above factor, where it's an overflow in the spirit first before it's made manifest. It's the mentality, the emotional intelligence in the matter, the decree of change, a change of frequency even happening from a higher realm that has nowhere to go but below or without, let's say, however you see that transference of energy. And it's going right where it's supposed to now. It's no longer, it's like a direct disbursement. It can no longer be rerouted or intercepted, stolen. It's like, what's that act called? The Fair Employment Act or something like that. Equal. I'm mixing it all up. But anyway, it's like that being, which we know, has never really been fair. And so that people find ways around it or to manipulate that energy. And we could talk about that in a million ways. Employment, housing, all of that. But it's like finally something being almost strong-armed into submission, that no, whomever is in alignment with this flow is exactly who's getting it. No, nothing more, nothing less. Certainly nothing less. But it's no longer going to be redirected and rerouted to those that just, um, assume, what's the word? Ownership, or that's not the word that I'm really looking for, but where you feel entitlement, assume entitlement. There it is. Oh, that's interesting. That assume entitlement, particularly by the way that they've been able to wield their power to enforce it, like certain advantages that have been imposed to support this distortion of entitlement. That support is no longer there. That force is no longer supported in the way that it used to be, which ultimately was from those that were being enforced upon, or being oppressed, more or less, whether they knew it or not. Now, all of that, that middleman energy is shaky, and so the bottom is falling out, and those that have justifiably aligned themselves with this overflow in spirit are receiving it in truth, in the flesh, where things are working out for you. Plans are aligning as you always hoped they would, always wished they would. This is absolutely what that is: wish fulfillment on the highest level. A reclamation of creative power, so that when you decide, it's like before, your energy was always like dispersed between different entities, like back to the slavery part. I don't know why we're talking about slavery so much, but here it is. When you're working in the field, you don't, especially as a slave, sharecropper is another level, but even with that, if you were working toward someone else's profit. None of that was being shared with you. And even as a sharecropper, there were so many layers of debt that were imposed on your account that you found yourself working to just stay alive, literally, like just to be able to just to be able to have a place to stay and maybe food to eat, which was the same, more or less as the slavery aspect, but they were supposed to be paying you, but you were ultimately taking your payment in food and lodging most times, more than anything, maybe getting pennies on the dollar for what your work and your energy was really worth. And in comparison to whatever the food and lodging may have been, it wasn't balanced, it wasn't equal, it wasn't fair. And now it's like that there is equal compensation, even abundant, really, because it's like the wealth that was withheld from all. Oh wow, that's amazing. And I saw a headline, I didn't watch it, but I saw somebody, I think Roland Martin, that guy that used to be on BT, he said something along the lines of the some type of reparations, bug on my wall, some type of reparations, something or another was voted down. Like it wasn't a crisis or something. Like I said, I didn't watch it, but there was something that was in consideration, to, I guess, disperse reparations on account of slavery, which has been in talks for a long time, and there was something was voted down. Whatever that was, it was declined. which is really interesting because it's like that probably is going to be more significant if that's true, and however it played out. That is probably going to be a nail in the coffin for the powers that be, the powers that were. Peace to Shavi Zane. Because if all you could have done is act like you was going to throw a couple thousand here or there to, you know, descendants of slaves or foundational Black Americans in this country in some way, shape, or form, you're throwing it everywhere else for no good reason. But if that could have been the one thing you could have done and declined to, man, the balancing that's going to happen on account of that is going to be is going to be disparaging for those that were in a position to green like that and said no. And I'm not saying that I'm necessarily for or against, but I know why those would be against it would be out of order. How could you even justify saying no, or saying that this wasn't a crisis that is worthy of reconciliation or retribution? How could you say that with the effects that it's still having, as I'm speaking of, even today, on generations of folks that are still pulling themselves out of the hole from enslaved ancestors that were cheated out of their divine inheritance, their inheritances in the natural form, lands that were swept from possession for eminent domain, neighborhoods that were destroyed for the same, and you know, on and on and on. And it's like, now is what's going to be enacted is a swift spiritual justice that is not so merciful and is not so graceful. It's going to cut dry to the bone, given exactly what's due, Wheel of Fortune, to all parties involved. Everybody. Nobody's going to be able to escape that. So those in the highest frequency that are in alignment for this release of abundance need not fret for a thing at this point. And those that have been withholding it have been rerouting it, interfering, taking more than what they're just due. Oh my God, the despair of and the outcome now is gonna be bad. 2:14 on the clock. 6-7. 6-7. 7th I can't even get it out. Page of Swords here. There's nothing that anybody's going to be able to do but watch and observe the universe go to work. That's it. Just pretty much wait your turn for your fate to unfold. Because it's coming no matter what. Wow. Oh my gosh. Wow. So this could be in the most literal of terms, or it could just be, you know, that the cycle is over, which we've had so many, well, not so many, but the Wheel of Fortune is here. That means that anything that's out of alignment with what is current to the evolution of creation, or the of divine ordinance, of fate, is doomed. Like, it's over. Like, it either is a cease and desist type of energy, or, you know, extermination, elimination altogether. So imagine the Page of Swords against this death energy here, trying to hold something back. It's impossible. This is no match for that energy. This energy is going to persist in exactly the way that it's supposed to. So that means if somebody's in alignment to be transformed, then so shall they be. If they're in alignment to be transitioned in the most physical and actual way, so shall it be. And so it is. Best case scenario, the transformation is ideal, even though it's not for those that encounter it. Best case scenario beyond the absolute is at least to be moved out the way, to be moved off of your pedestal, out of your position, to access to be revoked in some particular way. That is absolute still. And it's the justice of the divine and of this dimension for it to be carried out. Like, it's just, and that could be the agreement, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. It's like not just a matter of what spirit. Well, I kind of said that too, but I was saying it more in the matter of like people unto the divine, or our like submission to divine order. But it's like the dimension is ripe for change and transition and transformation, and spirit been ready. The divine been ready, like waiting on you, as a matter of fact, waiting on us. So it's like now that those two of cups are on one accord, literally here with the Ace of Cups on one accord, and all energies that need to be in place and in alignment are, and maybe it's not everybody, but enough are in alignment and of the same, sharing the same frequency for this power of change to be conducted precisely, is what I'm getting. The time is now. So anybody standing in the way of this is really writing their own death certificate in one way, shape, or form, in the highest vibration or in the lowest one. It could even be to suffer great losses in your life, as I spoke about, in a way that really hits hard and is hard to live with. Might not even be an absolute demise. It might make circumstances so hard to live with that they feel virtually unbearable. That's the trajectory that some are on, regardless, because that's the only way they're going to change, if at all. And for those that refuse, that will ultimately be their fate to bear as well. But one way or another, the time is now. Wow, Nine of Swords. Yeah. The choices to be made in the circumstances as they are, it's like you really don't have much of a choice, like there are only a few positive outcomes in this circumstance, as I said, like to change with respect to transformation itself, to be moved out the way, to be stopped in your tracks, or to be eliminated. Those are the only things. Like, imagine that's all the choices that you have when you actually wish to have something quite different from another timeline, from another season. Like, you really anticipated spinning the block on this old paradigm again, where you are the dominant power structure or wielder of power, and everything has to fall in line with with your, under your command, or else. No, that or else is backfired now. It's a return to sender now, and it's coming from a much higher ordinance. It's above everybody's pay grade in the human sense. It's like somebody that they literally have no other choice but to move forward with the evolution of this era, and they don't know how they're going to do that. because in this energy is still trying to maintain that semblance of power and control that is non-existent now. It doesn't exist that same way. And as I said before, there's not enough time or energy or support to figure out a new one. You know, like you can't Jim Crow your way through ascension. Not really, you know, not in a way that captures the essence of the energy that you would want to contain. You might get the scragglers, you might get the unenlightened, you might get the sheep, but they ain't gonna work hard. They're not going to have a high morale. They're probably going to be skimping wherever they can just for survival's sake alone, you know. And there's not going to be any devotion or commitment to excellence there. So it's like essentially, you know, you're paying for crap or you're investing in crap, and that is that's the product or the outcome will reflect that. It's like all of the most divine energies going on strike from this paradigm construct as it is, and resolving to create their own union, their own organization, and building a whole system in that regard. That's what's happening subtly, and maybe not so subtly. Eventually it'll seem to be over, like it happened overnight, where light forces, just as this cluster of stars is here, are going to gather on one accord, whether they even mean to or not. That's the synergy that's coming together to be more of a support for the light and to build in that regard, in a way that's a resistance to old paradigms. Again, to virtually make it impossible for them to rebuild to their to any semblance of old power, just as the South never really recovered from the loss of slavery and slave wages. And to ultimately dismantle the origins of those frequencies altogether, so that they don't even have a chance to 2:23 on the clock. They don't even have a chance to regenerate in spirit or in flesh. The only choice for vitality and sustenance is transformation at this point. So I'm gonna leave this here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Until next time, as always, I'll leave you with peace.